Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 35, overall 420 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. or email them at info@barrycullen.com. As always, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I hope everyone's doing well on this Friday, August 2nd, 2024, a hot, humid day here in Southern Ontario, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. This will be her first appearance, and her name is Gini Sikes. She is a stand-up comedian based in LA, but has performed all over the U.S., including New York, and she's also been a journalist and an author of her own book called 8 Ball Chicks. So I'm excited to have Gini Sikes on, and we're going to talk a little bit about her career as a journalist and how she got into comedy, and maybe her latest performances as well. Good afternoon, Gini. How are you?
Hey, Chris. How are you? I'm good.
I am doing good here on this hot, muggy Friday afternoon here in Southern Ontario.
Well, it's hot and muggy in LA, so we have that in common.
I just can't believe it's already August 2nd. Where has the summer gone?
It's still here.
It's going by quick, though.
Well, I guess in Canada, it goes by quicker than it does here in California.
Yeah, we have our 4 seasons, and I don't mind the 4 seasons because it gives you a taste of everything. But I'll tell you this, we've had the most rain here in Ontario in the summertime since 1954, and we didn't have much of a winter this year, a mild winter. So I think all the rain we've had this year has made up for the lack of snow we had this year.
Gotcha.
So
we could always use rain here.
So how are you doing? And how was your last performance on July 31st? I believe it was in La Jolla Comedy Store?
La Jolla. Oh,
La Jolla. Sorry.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's near San Diego. It's a suburb of San Diego. And it was an interesting show because we were at the Comedy Store La Jolla, and the show was called Pretty Funny Women. And the woman who started at Lisa's Sunset, the reason she started it like 20 years ago or something, the reason she started it was she was a comedian and she would hang out at the Improv, trying to get stage time. And somebody there said, you're too pretty to be funny. And so which I didn't have that problem, but she started this show where she got all these women together, and it was like Chelsea Handler, Tig Notaro. So she started the show. A lot of famous women came out of it, and she still does it. So we did it Wednesday night at the Comedy Store in La Jolla.
I want to ask you this, on general, how long are your live performances generally, and for comedy generally?
Well, in California, it's a little, in LA area, it's a little different. Like in the Midwest, or I think probably in Canada too, the clubs usually have an opener who might do 10 minutes, then a feature comedian who could do, 20 to 30, and then the headliner doing at least 45 to an hour. But in LA, there are a lot of shows where you can get anywhere between 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 15. It's not set up quite the same way. So And when you're on a show with a number of people, so what was it? It was 8 minutes Wednesday, but then I'm going back to San Diego for a feature, and that will be 15.
How do you like going to San Diego? It's not that far from LA. It's what, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours?
Yeah, in the summer the traffic is horrendous. It was like
Oh,
three.
it sounds like here in Toronto as well. Toronto is one of the worst cities in North America for traffic, so that's something we have in common.
Well, yeah, and I was driving down there, and I went by Camp Pendleton, and I just stopped the car because there's a lookout point where you can see the ocean. And I went up there. While I'm there, all of a sudden they started this training, and these tanks came by, and all this dust whipped up, and then a helicopter came. I was just covered with dust.
Oh,
It was it was like in a war. But so that was my time to relax before the show.
a little bit of a little bit of an experience there. I wanted to ask you this as well, since you're a comedian as well. Obviously you write your own jokes. What's the process like for writing your own jokes? Did it just come naturally, or sometimes it takes a little more time for that part of it?
Well, I've been a writer all my life. That was what I was trained to do. But comedy writing is very different from anything else. I mean, there are a number of ways you can approach it. Like sometimes, like if you think you have a funny story, you can write the story down, and then you have to go through it and say, so find the funny, and where, how can I make this funny? And the other thing is, if there's something you have observed, let's say, that I'm trying to think of an example, like a friend who's always late, you can use it as a premise. And then you can think of something, well, why is this person always late? And then write down, 20 things as to why they could be late, So there is joke structure. I've taken tons of classes on joke structure. So, but now, I mean, it's a muscle. I just carry my phone with me, and I have it by my bed, and I just write down thoughts, as I think them. But other comedians will just go up on, what open mics are. It's where you go, comics go to just basically rehearse material, because we're the one art form that you have to have an audience to do. You have to try out new stuff. Like actors don't have to try out new stuff in front of a crowd, but comedians do. And so some people get up and they just riff. They just talk about what bugs them, and they record it, and then they take it back home and they listen to it and see if they have anything there. I tend to be more of a, write on the page and then try it out.
How difficult was the 2-year pandemic for the comedy industry, and how important was it to be able to still do your comedy through live streaming?
Wow, that's a great question, because I mean, in a bizarre way, COVID made comedy possible for me, because I had started just before COVID, like maybe half a year. And so then everything closed, and people who still wanted to perform started to do it, Zoom shows. And there was a group of people that I kept seeing at the same Zoom shows, and we were all at the same level, like fairly most of us were, not doing this long. And I got so much stage time from these Zoom shows that I would never have gotten if I was trying to do it live. And a lot of comics moved out of LA. A lot moved to Austin, and then they moved back. It was like you could tell, like at the end of COVID, there were just so many more comics back here. But for me, it was great. I mean, I did shows all through COVID, and I worked, on my comedy all through COVID. And then at the end of it, when we finally could go out again, I went and met a lot of people that I hadn't known in person. And it was like going to a high school reunion with people you didn't go to high school with, but you still knew. It was really fun. I mean, I really credit that period as being a really productive learning period.
And that's how I started my new career was in 2020. And obviously, with everything shut down, I had the technology, and I started my show. And you know what? I'll be honest. I'm thankful, and I love doing my virtual show. But since the pandemic ended, I now do live interviews with people. And as much as we love the virtual, there's nothing better than being in person. Obviously, as a comedian doing a live show, or for me talking to athletes or actors in person as well.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree with that. I mean, the one thing with comedy is, the Zoom would have a delay. So, you'd have to like give the audience a moment to laugh so you didn't step on, you didn't talk over them. So, yeah, I'm glad that we're not doing it that way exclusively now.
Absolutely. I love doing both. And I think I can't speak for you, but I know I appreciate doing things more now than before the pandemic.
You
Just
mean,
because
you
just
mean,
going out in public and,
oh,
and
yeah.
doing things, because for 2 years it was kind of taken away from us. So now I just try to really enjoy it more. And I actually think I'm more sociable now than I was before the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree with you. Which is odd because so many people had the reverse experience. They were isolated and it, kind of damaged, could damage them, mentally. But for me, and it sounds like you, it was productive time. And when I got out, I was even that, yeah, like you said, that much more social.
It got me through the 2 years, and I think we can relate there. We have a viewer on. He has his own podcast show in Buffalo, New York. His name is Robbie Schneider. He's new to podcasting, but he is so supportive. So I want to say hi, Robbie, and thank you for watching our show with Jenny tonight. And hopefully you get some laughs from Jenny as well.
Yeah, fellow New Yorker.
And you know what? The Buffalo, New York area has been great. They a lot of their teams, and it's if you ever get a chance to go to Buffalo, New York, I know it gets a bad rep for the blizzards and the snow, but the people there are friendly, down to earth. They love their music, their beer, their sports, and they have a really great waterfront. So if you ever get to do comedy, check out Buffalo, New York one day.
Cool. Yeah. I used to have a house in upstate New York, but not that far upstate.
And by the way, New York State, I love it, and I love going through Syracuse and Albany to New York City. It's just beautiful up in central New York.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I miss it.
Absolutely. All right, Jenny, we're going to get to some questions. My show is based in Ontario, but it's in Georgia. Can you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, for most of my career, I was a journalist, and I got my master's in journalism from Columbia. And actually, my first job, I worked for Tiger Beat magazine, which I don't know if Canadians know.
Yes, we had it.
Yeah, but it also, like, you have to be of a certain age to remember it. It might still be online, but it was a magazine for teenagers about teen idols. So that was my first job, like a job I did not need a college degree for, but it was great. It was one of my favorite jobs ever. Like Prince would show up or Leif Garrett, and I still want to do some jokes about this, but my coworker married the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, the serial killer. And I was like, here's an editor teaching or telling, you little girls how to win a guy's heart. And she's married to a guy who would cut your heart out. So.
Wow. Obviously you went to Columbia University. Did you have any mentor or mentors when you were first starting out in journalism?
There was a professor at Columbia that was a mentor. His name is Bruce Porter. He's written a lot of books, and I don't know if you remember this movie. I'm going to not remember the name, but it was about Johnny Depp being a drug dealer, and he was bringing drugs in from Central America, I think. And it was a hit. But anyways, that was based on a book that Bruce wrote about the real person. And then I had editors, like, because once I was at Columbia, and after Tiger Beat, I worked for Mademoiselle. I worked for an architecture magazine. And then I started doing crime stories because a case happened in Wisconsin, where I'm from. And so I went back there to do a story there, and that kind of changed the direction of my journalism. And from there, I worked at MTV, on PBS. I did a lot of things about youth culture and crime. And then my most recent job before I switched to comedy, I was working as on the production side of Matt Groening. He's the creator of The Simpsons.
Simpsons, yes.
His last show was called Disenchantment on Netflix, and I worked on there for 2 years.
What was that experience like? And also, what part of Wisconsin were you from? And any chance you were a Green Bay Packer fan growing up too?
My dad was a Green Bay Packer fan, and my brother, I didn't really care. But I have to tell you, there were no cheeseheads when we were growing up. That was not a thing. And what Packer fans did was pretty clever, because I believe Illinois used to call us cheeseheads, like it was like to make fun of us. So they just embraced it. It's kind of like Eminem and 8 Mile, where he says, I'm going to talk shit about myself before you can. But I couldn't believe it when I would go home and people would be wearing pieces of cheese, fake cheese on their head. But I'm from the center of the state, Wausau, and my brother lives in Milwaukee.
I been to and now I know why they call it the Dairy State as well. And I had really a good time at the Brewers game there. And then I actually got to take a tour of the Miller Brewery plant in Milwaukee, and then actually went to Lambeau Field to see a Packers game. And what an experience, Lambeau Field in Green Bay. It's just amazing seeing this big stadium in a city that's small, about maybe 100,000 people. It's just amazing.
And the way the Packer fans are real special. You know what I mean? They really, I even without me being particularly interested, they're usually really great people, and their pride. But it's funny you called it the Dairy State. The thing that got me started in crime reporting was that in Wisconsin, there's this contest, well, in central Wisconsin, there's a contest called the Dairy Princess. And it's a contest they hold for young women who are interested in a career in agriculture. But they get crowned in a sash, or at least they did at the time. And my mother called me and said that the Dairy Princess had strangled a homecoming queen outside of the Howard Johnsons over the love of a local farm boy. And they had like bumper stickers said, Wisconsin, if the cholesterol doesn't get you, the Dairy Princess will.
And I wanted to ask you this, Jenny. How much of an adjustment was it leaving Wisconsin to continue your career?
It wasn't, because I left when I was 18. And, it's weird. When I was in 5th grade, I wrote in my diary, I'm going to move to either LA or New York. And I don't know how I chose those. I mean, it was like, and I'm going to write about music or in entertainment, and I'm going to go to college in the South. Well, undergrad, and then I forgot about it. But in high school, I wrote for the school paper, and I interviewed any musician or act that came by, like Styx came, I interviewed them.
Wow.
But so I went to school in Missouri, and then I went to LA, and then I was there a couple of years, and then I moved to New York, and I was there 30 years. And about 10 years ago, I moved back to LA. But except for the fact that I never became a music critic, I basically did what I set out to do.
How much did landing the job with Tiger Beat, and then obviously these other publications like the Washington Post, Glamour, Vanity Fair, Essence, Travel, Leisure, and the New York Times, how much did that help you in your career, and what was those experiences like?
Well, I had worked, back then, the journalism has changed so much. There just aren't jobs, and there are few magazines, and it's and because everything is on the internet, it's actually more democratic. It's easier for people to get their work seen. I worked on staff for several magazines, and I was an editor at Mademoiselle, which was an American fashion magazine that no longer exists. But I was there until I was about 30. And I think that's when I decided to go freelance. After I wrote the Dairy Princess story for a magazine called Glamour. And then, so when I was writing for the New York Times or the Post, Washington Post, those were freelance assignments. And I made a living, but it wasn't, it's not easy, and it would be almost impossible now. But it was great. I mean, I had so many interesting experiences. Like then I went to MTV, and they recruited me because they wanted somebody with magazine background. And so, and I basically got taught on the job, like you were saying, how you learned to do your podcast, by just doing it.
Self-taught.
So, but because of being a journalist, like I went down a coal mine to do a story on OxyContin. I went to Washington State, where they have chimps who speak sign language, and I spent 2 weeks, writing about them. I've interviewed Harrison Ford, Nicolas Cage, Jeff Goldblum, all of which I couldn't do if I wasn't in this career. And then when I wrote my book, I spent a year with girls that were in street gangs, which is interesting because I couldn't do that if I were just going as myself. The thing is, I had a job. You kind of a persona as a journalist. Like I can go in and I'm working, so I can talk to Harrison Ford or whoever. However, if I had to go up to them at a coffee shop and say, hi, I just want to talk to you, I would not do it, So it's been a real gift.
What are your thoughts on the shrinking newspaper magazine era? Because I grew up in the 70s and 80s with newspapers and magazines, and it seems like the market is shrinking, and it's kind of sad in a way to see that.
Well, it absolutely is. It's a double-edged sword. I like holding a magazine, and if you pick up any magazine now, they're so thin, because I guess they're not getting the advertising, so they don't get the pages. And I made a living writing for magazines and newspapers. But the thing about the internet that is interesting to me is when people first started posting, their own stories and stuff on the internet, I was reading, and I couldn't believe how much talent was out there. I mean, yeah, there's bad stuff out there as well, but I was always amazed at the quality of writing. And I was like, when I was an editor and we were choosing who to write a story, I had to pass it through various levels. So even if I thought somebody was a good writer, if the higher ups hadn't heard of them, then they may not get passed. So one thing the internet did was it made it more accessible for people who want to write to be able to. And then I guess, it's the same with TikTok, for comedians, like people who do funny videos, some of them get found out. So I think that's a good thing about it. It's just a lot of people losing jobs.
Absolutely. By the way, TikTok, I joined 4 years ago at 47, 48. I thought it was going to be ridiculous, a bad experience. And I'm glad I listened to my friend, because they said, if you want to get your name out there, you want to learn how to do things, TikTok. And now I'm a full-time content creator there. And I've learned how to cut promos for my guests and for my shows through TikTok. So the technology, obviously there's negative aspects to it, but also has good aspects as well, as long as you use it in the right tool.
Oh yeah, if you look at the comedian Matt Rife, I mean, he got he's a comedian who got known from posting videos, and he is now probably one of the most successful comedians out there. Yeah, if you know how to do TikTok, I have found that I don't. What makes a video get, 1 million hits somehow eludes me. But
yes, there's sometimes where you do content, you think it's going to do well, and it doesn't. And then sometimes you post something on TikTok or social media, you think, this is going to be awful. And it goes viral. And it's just, you're right. I still haven't figured out that yet.
I just recently, somebody posted, a comedian was doing an interview with another comedian, and I just posted a comment about it. The comment got 3,000 hits, 3,000 likes which does nothing. I mean, it was just people saying, "Oh, I agree with you," or whatever. I was like, "Wow, I wish I could get my content to get 3,000 likes in one day."
It's just consistency. And like I said, I've been lucky. I've been able to interview former Major League Baseball players, kind of guys, professional athletes. And I know people aren't tuning in just to see me. They want to see the guys I'm talking to. And
Yeah, sure.
it's just, but you know what? Anything that gets my name out there or gets a comedian's name out there, it's a good tool. I would just tell anybody, just be consistent and just keep at it and don't give up on it.
Right, right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get into some comedy questions, I wanted to ask you this too. What were some of your most I reworded this question because I don't like the word favorite. What were some of your most memorable stories you wrote and interviews you did in your journalism career?
Well, I wrote this book, Eight Ball Chicks, which was about female gangs in LA, Milwaukee, and San Antonio. And that probably like was the most eye-opening and life-changing experience because I mean I was living in Brooklyn and I was a journalist, but I didn't hang out with street gangs, and then all of a sudden I was. And what struck me the most was how people that we're afraid of or see as different from us, like I mean these kids who came from gangs, their parents loved their children, they had barbecues and parties. I mean they had much of their life was similar to anybody's, but they were also in environments where they were faced with a lot of violence, and both in the home and on the streets. And meeting those kids and how articulate some of them were was really a gift. It was a gift. And I stayed in touch with a lot of the kids I met, and all the girls, except one, I think, got out of the gang life. And then there was a young man I was writing for years in a Texas prison. And I wrote a letter when he was up for parole for him. And that was, just the whole experience was a blessing.
How important was it to have a strong support system when you were in journalism and seeing this stuff? Because I guess it can get emotional too.
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, it's interesting because while I was doing the gang book, I was married, and so I would go away for a month or so, come back, and then type up my notes, and then go out again. So my husband, I would come back and I would tell him the stories. But when you're reporting, you kind of like I do. There's a part of me that kind of shuts down too much emotion because you don't want to like start crying when someone's telling you a story because it doesn't help them, And so that was the way I worked. I would get very, driven, and my husband would get very upset hearing some of the stories that, a lot of violence. And but it also was my way of decompressing, and also I use humor. I have a lot of times I use humor, and it's what is it called? Well, it's the same humor that cops have or morticians or something. It's dark, which my husband didn't really like. We're no longer married, but but that's another story. But when I got to write then, so after I did all the reporting, when I went to write, I had to feel the emotion again, or feel the emotion for the first time. So that was a challenge, to bring it up. And then because I didn't want to write like an automaton. So it's a process, it's definitely a process. And, I have friends who were war correspondents, one of them in Chechnya. And he was there when the Chechens, actually it was a Russian school that was attacked by terrorists, and they burned all these kids. And I was talking to him during that, and I was like, man, I mean, I don't know anything, like how you work through that. So I have a lot of admiration for journalists.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you this. If you want to promote your book, is it still available on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, and other
Yep.
book places? Yeah.
Yeah. It's called 8-Ball Chicks, and that's with a numeral 8 ball. And chicks, if people don't know what I'm saying, it's like, CHICKS. And yeah, it's available in Amazon, and yeah, probably best to order it or the library. It's still there.
Okay. Okay, I will have to check it out because I'd like to read your book and support you as well. And what was the process like having the book published? Did you self-publish it?
No, no. What happened was I had written a story about this is going back years ago, but I had written a story about some girl in a street gang in New York. And I got a letter from an agent, and she was from La Jolla, where I just played. But agents, in my mind, were all in New York City. So I got this letter, and it was from La Jolla agent, and was on pink stationery. And I was like, I just did not look like a typical agent's letter to me. And she said, if you have any ideas for a book, let me know. And I thought, well, I should probably pursue this just in case it's legitimate. And so, but I wasn't really thinking it would happen. So I said, oh, I could write a book, on gangs. And she liked it, that idea. And she had me write a proposal. So I spent all this time writing a proposal. And what you do is you speculate what you're going to do. Like you write 3 chapters based on, real material you've gathered. And then the rest, you have to kind of speculate. You have to do your research, but saying, I will do X, Y, Z. And I sold it, for a decent price at that time. But when it was finally due, the one thing I regret about it is I think it came out earlier than it needed to. I would have liked to work on it longer, but they wanted to get it out. So they were launching it in January, and they got me on all these talk shows. And while I was doing the talk shows, the book was supposed to be on the shelves, and they changed a computer system. So all the books that came out that January came out late. So while I was doing all this press, the book wasn't available, which is not a good thing. It was a very disappointing thing because it might have made a big difference. But I will say this, that book came out in 98, 99, and it's still in print, which isn't that common with a lot of books. So it did well. It did well. I mean, like I said, I would have liked to work on it longer, but
I'd definitely like to purchase the book and read it and let you know what I think of it. And I think that's awesome you did that. Last journalist question I want to ask you, and then I want to play a video of one of your improv comedy skits. What for those people that are watching the show live stream or listening on audio or on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, a little plug there. What advice would you give? Yeah, it's just outside of Atlanta. What advice would you give digital writers, people that want to do digital stories or even write their own book one day?
I mean, it's kind of the same advice I'd give to any writer. I mean, one thing the digital people are doing, I mean, they can see their stuff in print, it's easier to, and self-publishing. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can get your work out there, which is a good thing. But it's hard to get paid for it because it's just so easy. I mean, you can publish so much that they don't pay very much. And in fact, like some of the online magazines would pay the same for a 300-word story that was just, some fluff, as they would a 3,000-word piece that was an investigative piece. Like there wasn't a much bigger difference in pay. So nobody's going to want to do the investigative pieces, put all the time in. Those time, require time. I mean, obviously there are people publishing and being, who get paid and survive on the internet, but it is challenging to, make a living. But it's just the same thing I would say as any writer, write. And especially if you aren't, you aren't known yet, is what you want to pitch is something you have, maybe, maybe you're really knowledgeable about, kickboxing or something. So write about what you know, or you've had you have some contact with a celebrity or something. It's just because if you pitch too generic an idea to an editor, they're like, well, why should I have you write it? What do you bring to the table that I couldn't just give this idea to another writer? So it's coming up with unique ideas and or at least a unique angle.
And that's what I love doing this show for, is the storytelling aspect. But I also learn something new every time I have a guest on my show. And I want to say thank you, Jenny, for giving us some time. Are you okay for a little more time and to
Sure.
play your video? And we'll get into how you transitioned from a journalist into a comedian.
Cool. That sounds great.
And by the way, this is courtesy of your YouTube channel. And make sure you hit Gini Sikes YouTube channel. And I realize how hard it is to build up a YouTube channel as well, but you get a little bit of a nice work start there.
Yeah, it's pretty young.
Okay, 1 second. We're going to play this clip, and just let me know if you can hear the audio okay.
Being older would take longer. Yeah, you guys know? Yeah, which may explain why I still dress like a 9th grade whore. When I don't, apparently I'm invisible to a growing populace. Guys cut in front of me in line. Sales clerks act like I don't exist. And my shoplifting's never been better. Recently, I came out as translucent. Things change. I remember when I was younger getting screwed by these cute bartenders, and now I'm getting screwed by pharmaceutical companies. I got bad ADHD, and there's a national shortage of Adderall because, so many teenagers need it. It is now easier for me to get meth than my prescription drugs. Like, if I need meth, I guess I could just blow someone. If I want Adderall, I have to blow a 13-year-old named Tanner. Hence the outfit. No, it's a joke. I'm not allowed 1,000 feet within a school. So you want to hear something weird? I recently found out that female frogs will fake their own death. Yeah, fake their own death. And the reason? To get out of sex. That's so sad. I'm going to tell them that never works. I know way too much about death because I hang out at murder scenes. Just me. I'm a crime reporter. Don't tell me about your podcast. I have written about the Menendez trial, serial killers for the New York Times, Investigation Discovery. In my job, I have seen true horrors. I'm sorry, I was saying horrors, not whores. So I've seen plenty of those. A couple at the bar. So I have my master's degree in journalism from Columbia. Thank you. I tell you that so you know how far I've fallen. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm up here talking about frogs faking and raping. But here's something worse than death. Dating apps for seniors. So I'm becoming an aging asexual. Wow. But I'm trying to believe that human contact is okay. So I signed up on this site called Never Too Late. It's for singles in hospice. I just wanted some meaningful conversation because I'm looking to my future and it's death. This gentleman named Dougie gifted me with a portrait of his package, I think. I was like, oh my God, is that a melted candle? Or else he poured salt on a slug. But I love a mystery. So last weekend we had dinner at his bedside. And I figured the odds of, chances of hanky-panky were less than 50-50. So I only shaved one leg. But I did shave both my nipples. And it took a while, but we finally reached second base. Yeah, the nurse had to hold his hand on my breast because it kept falling into my lap. Apparently, Dougie thinks my boobs are lower than my standards. But afterwards, I felt so good about myself. I'm like, Ginny, you are so charitable. I should write this off my taxes. But the next day, Dougie didn't call. Rude. So I called the hospice and they told me, whoever answered said, Dougie died. I know, you can imagine how I felt. I was so relieved. I thought that old geezer ghosted me. Well, which he kind of did. Wait, unless he's faking it. In which case, I didn't get ghosted, I got frogged. I'm Gini Sikes, thank you. I thought getting old.
Thoughts on this performance, and that word ghosting is used so much nowadays.
Yeah. So
that was
what, change it to frog.
And that was what, June 15th at the Improv?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to get into some comedy questions if you have a few more minutes. When did you make that decision to pursue a career in the comedy industry, and what's it like been turning to the stage?
Well, it's interesting. I had no desire to do comedy. It wasn't a dream of mine. I liked comedians. I liked writing funny material, but just never even thought about it. I did work on Dennis Leary's first show that went nowhere. He had it on the before it was known as the Comedy Central. He was on that network. But all the people who worked on the show, the writers, that was not a writer, went on to work for like The Simpsons, Conan, Bill Maher, like they all. So I knew a lot of comedy writers, and I liked that. But I had a really bad stage fright. Like I had to, before I did my book tour, I had to get coached because I was so nervous talking in front of people. What happened is in 2018, I was working for Matt Groening's production, and they went on hiatus, and so I was let go, and I didn't know if the show was going to be picked up, and so I kind of thought, like, I'm getting at an age where I don't know when my next job will come, so I'm going to do something I'm going to do something different, and I do like change. Like, I had a fellowship at Stanford University where I could take any course on campus, and I took dissection just because I was like, well, when do you get to dissect a body, So I decided that I was going to take a storytelling class. I don't know. Are you familiar with The Moth? It's a NPR public radio show where people get up and tell stories about their life. And so one of the guys who has won a lot of their contests offered a show at a class at Second City. So I took that, and we had a little performance, and a friend of mine saw it, and he said, you should do stand-up comedy. And I was like, why would I want to? I didn't know. And he and his wife were taking a workshop, and they invited me to take it too. And I only took it because I'd moved to LA, and they were the first people I made friends with. So I thought I should do this. And you hear this from comedians a lot of times, like they never think that they were going to do it. And then once they do it, they're stuck, like they get addicted. And this doesn't always happen, but what happened for me is when we did our first comedy show, there's there's such a thing as beginner's luck. Like you try golf for the first time and you're great, so you think you're going to be great forever. And so I had a really fun, great performance, and then it becomes like chasing the dragon. You just want to have that feeling of making people laugh again. So like people who my friends who know me are all really surprised. I mean, this just wasn't anything I talked about or thought about, or but there must be a zeitgeist. There's so many people. There's more comedians now than ever, it seems like. And every person has decided, like, I'll do a show. A friend will come. She goes, well, I'm going to do comedy now. I mean, it's just, which is kind of, I don't know. Is that an insult? Like, oh, that looked easy. But yeah, so I'm just one of many.
It's just like this podcast. There's millions and millions of podcasts out there. Everybody wants to be a radio star. By the way, I can relate to you. If you'd known me 10 years ago or longer, when I was in elementary school, high school, many, many moons ago, I hated public speaking. I avoided it. And now being 52, I am so comfortable being in front of a camera or an audience. I even do some public speaking for high school students. I never thought when I was younger that I would be doing public speaking or on air.
I know. Well, and also I guess it's just the time, that we're in. We didn't have podcasts, when we were growing up. And so it's a new world to explore.
Absolutely. Do you remember your first live performance? And
Yeah.
do you have a ritual or a superstition before you go live?
Not really. I mean, I have chronic fatigue. I have a condition of chronic fatigue. So the day of a show, I have to really kind of lay low just because I don't have enough energy for everything. But that's about it. I think of the set over and over. I say it in my head. And then, like right before I go on, I like to be alone if possible. Yeah, that's not always possible, but just to have a minute. But it's funny because I had such severe stage fright, but I got over it fairly quickly. And what really helped was I bombed early, and everybody bombs, but you fear it and certainly don't want to do it. But I bombed very early on, and so I got off, and I was like, wow, okay, well, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I mean, nothing's changed. And I'm not known, so nobody's going to go around and, badmouth me. So it was liberating. I was like, oh, that's what it feels like. And not that said, I don't like to do it, like obviously you have a great, but at least the first time it was actually a good thing, blessing.
When you were growing up, Jenny, did you have any favorite comedians, male or females?
My brother, he's like 2 years older than me. He got me into the Marx Brothers and what was it called? Fireside Theater, Bob Newhart, Steve Martin. So we listened to a lot of Bill Cosby. We listened to a lot of comedy albums. And it was funny, when I was in college, Steve Martin came and did a performance, and it was so weird. I'd never seen a comedian at a stadium. It was a stadium, and they didn't have jumbotrons then. So I was way up in the nosebleed section, and he was down there. You could hear him, but he was doing all the bits that you knew, like, King Tut and Wild and Crazy Guy. And that's when he stopped doing stand-up, because he was like, he felt that that was not really stand-up when everybody was reciting his stuff. But now it's a much different experience if you see them with the jumbotrons. But I was like, this is hard to be funny. He's so far away and little. Yeah. So, and now I guess the people I like, I've always liked Sarah Silverman. I love her delivery. Maria Bamford, Jim Gaffigan. I like Louis C.K. There's just so many.
For me, it's Eddie Murphy and Chevy Chase, who were on Saturday Night Live. And by the way, we had our own version of Saturday Night Live here in Canada in the 70s and early 80s called SCTV with the
Oh
late
yeah,
John Candy,
yep.
Eugene Levy, Joe Flaherty. Canada's known for hockey and beer and donuts, but we've had a lot of great comedians
Oh
and
yeah,
actors come out
Catherine
of here.
O'Hara was on SCTV, wasn't she? And she did the
Yes.
Brooke Shields imitation, Brooke Shields singing "Whip It" and then explodes. That was the best. That's great. No,
So
that was a great show.
before we
Yeah.
wrap this up, I wanted to ask you this question. Can you, Jenny, describe your comedy style and how long does it take for yourself to engage a crowd before a live performance to see what kind of mood they're in?
Well, my comedy style, I would say, is well, I am quirky. I'm very I'm eccentric, and I tend toward more dark material. Kind of the darker jokes. Um, but I think I'm kind of wacky. It's weird watching myself when somebody else is watching with me. That was a weird experience. Um, how long does it, I'm still learning about engaging the crowd. What it so much depends where you are in the lineup. Like if you're the first person to go, it's always harder. And if it's, like headliners now are taking, I don't know about in the Midwest, but a lot of them go in the middle because they don't want to be at the end when the audience is tired. So if you're at the very end or the very beginning, you don't know what the audience is might be, not warmed up or they're tired. So I always like to be in the middle. And I also watch the audience and the other comics who come up before me and see, what the crowd is responding to.
Who determines who opens it and goes in the middle and at the end? Do you have a say, or is it the promoter or the person putting the show on that says it?
It's the producer who puts the show
Okay.
on. I mean, obviously, like I was saying earlier, like in clubs around the country, it's only three people: the opener, the feature, and the headliner, and there's, they know who they are. But for these sort of in LA and stuff, it's the producer of the show, or the booker, or sometimes I've worked with one guy who he decides at the moment. He has the comedians there and he listens and he just says, "Okay, you're next," because he's trying to mix it up.
Okay. This one I wanted to ask you. I was reading it, but can you just tell my audience quickly about the term a pessimistic Pollyanna in terms of comedy?
Yeah, so that's just something I call myself. Like, I don't think anybody under the age of 50 is going to know what a Pollyanna is. It's a very old-fashioned term, but a Pollyanna is it's a character who's always optimistic and rosy and innocent and looks at the good side of things. And pessimistic is obviously a downer. And I always felt like I was Debbie Downer because like my friends would say, "God, you ruin everything nice," because like they'll be out and they'll say something like, "My kid graduated from nursing school," and I'll go, "Did you know there was a serial killer that only killed nurses?" And they're like, "Why are you bringing this up?" It's just my mind goes to, as a journalist, you have so many facts in your head, so my mind always goes to the darkest fact. But by the same token, I really am. I want to believe in the best of people and stuff. So it's like I'm a Pollyanna because I hope that people will do the right thing and in the good in people. But I'm also pessimistic because that's just my nature. So
In your career so far, do you have a favorite club that you like to perform at?
there's a club here in LA, or it's in Pasadena. It's called the Ice House, and it's been there for years. But it was recently bought by Johnny Buss, who owns the. Here's a sports thing. I believe he owns the basketball
The
team.
the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers,
He
the
doesn't
bus
own the Lakers. He owns the. Is it the Clippers? Is
the
there?
Clippers, yeah, the LA Clippers.
Yeah, and he opened up. The Ice House went under during COVID, and he reopened it, and he's made it into such a lovely club, and it's just a wonderful place to play, and people just go like, they just come, they don't care who's playing necessarily. They just come out to hear comedy. So I've really enjoyed that club.
You've performed obviously in LA and New York. Have there been any other cities and states you've performed in so far?
Well, I'm going to Michigan in September.
That's not far from me. I live just 3.5 hours from Michigan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't even know. Like, I don't think we're playing. A friend who's a comedian out there kind of put together this tiny little tour, and it's probably going to be shows like I'm guessing in supper clubs or something, as opposed to a comedy club. But it's going to be in Ann Arbor, and
that's where the Michigan Wolverines play. Ann Arbor. Go Blue.
Okay. So doing that in September, and I think it's September 18th through the 23rd. And then what else? But that's my thing. I want to play more like the Midwest and stuff, because I think I want to play where not too close. I want to play like to see what comedy works in different areas.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I'm not that far from Ann Arbor, both 4 hours. I know that area very well because it's not far from where my cousins live in Michigan. I have family there in Taylor.
Oh.
So that's really neat that you're going to be in Michigan in September, and fingers crossed, maybe I'll be able to pop up and see you perform.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I'll keep you posted about where and when.
It's a great state. You'll love Ann Arbor, and Michigan is known as the Great Lakes State. Great Lakes State.
I was in there because of Traverse City. I did a film called Equal Means Equal, and it was in Michael Moore's film festival. So we went there for that, and it was really fun.
Traverse City is known for their cherries and their famous fudge.
There you go. I didn't know that at the time. I would have eaten some.
And before we wrap this up, by the way, I want to say thank you so much, Gini, again for coming on here today. But I do this with all my guests at the end. What are some fun facts, or even one fun fact about yourself your fans might not know about you?
I love ducks, and I've had pet ducks. I had a duck in New York, and but I accidentally killed them. But I mean, not on purpose. Well, not. But when I was a kid, I had a baby duck that my mom got me for Easter. She thought it wouldn't live, and it did. We didn't live in the country, but ducks bond like dogs do. But for her year birthday, I made her a chocolate cake in the shape of a heart, and chocolate is toxic to ducks like it is to dogs.
Yes.
So I accidentally killed her with love.
I'm sorry.
I am too.
And I volunteer at a Humane Society, so I love dogs, cats, and animals, and I wish their lives were longer, but thank you for sharing that anyways.
Yeah, a little bit of a downer, but kind of keeping in character.
And finally, can you tell my audience about your next upcoming live event before Michigan? And for those who are in your area in the California area watching this, why they should come out and see you do stand-up comedy?
Because I'm funny. Well, the next, I'm going to be in San Diego, August 24th at a new club called the National Lampoon Yellow Door.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the, bigger ones, but that's what I'm looking forward to.
And they can check your website, right?
Yep.
I have it on here, down here, Gini Sikes comedy.com.
Or they can go on Instagram, and it's just my name, Gini Sikes.
And you're also on LinkedIn or Linktree, I think. Linktree.
Yeah, that's connected to my Instagram. So if you want tickets, you just click on my bio in Instagram and you get them, or on my website.
And finally, where can my audience follow you on social media? What's the best social media site for them to check you out?
Instagram. And again, it's just my name. Facebook, Gini Sikes, GINI SIKES, or YouTube, or my website, which is GiniSikesComedy.com. It's all pretty simple.
Okay. Well, Gini, I want to say I apologize for keeping you over 45 minutes, but it was just having a great conversation, and time flies by. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here today. And I want to wish you continued success in your comedy career. And fingers crossed, I can get up to Michigan in September because I would like to come to one of your live performances. And that'll give me an excuse to visit my cousins in Taylor, Michigan, too.
There you go. That would be so cool. Well, thank you. This has been really delightful. And, props to you for doing this podcast.
And I will send you an audio video link for our show, and
Okay.
I'll let you know when it airs on WQEE 99.1 FM. I would say most likely Monday night, but I will send you all the links, and I will do some reels and clips for you. I've learned how to edit video as well.
Wow, you're the best. You
Well,
really are.
I still got a lot to learn, and I'm a work in progress, but I love doing this, and I loved hearing your stories and learning things from you today, Jenny. And I want to again say thank you so much for giving us some time.
And right back at you. I really appreciate it.
And we'll definitely we'll keep in touch in social media, and fingers crossed about September.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Talk to you soon.
Yes, I hope. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed season 8, episode 35, overall 420 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show with today's guest, Gini Sikes, who's a female stand-up comedian out of Los Angeles, and she does do performances in San Diego, and she will be in Michigan in the month of September at Ann Arbor. You can get more information on her website at GiniSikesComedy.com. GiniSikesComedy.com, and she's on all major social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as well. And I want to say thank you to Gini Sikes again for coming on here as well. By the way, before we wrap up our show, guys, the next Argo Bounce live audio show with co-host Chris Pame, Nick Small, Tuesday. Note the date, Tuesday, August 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern, with her special guest, Matthew Shinetti, a CFL on TSN sideline reporter. He was covering soccer this last couple months for TSN, and he's now back covering the CFL on TSN as a sideline reporter. So we're going to talk to Matthew about his soccer experience and also being back on the CFL broadcast on TSN and talking about the Week 9 games and the Canadian Football League. So Argo Bounce this Tuesday, August 6th, 7 o'clock with Matthew Shinetti from TSN. He's a great guest, and hopefully you guys can tune in Tuesday at 7 p.m. as well. Got another comment here from our viewers. Thank you all much for watching. Just 1 second. And Robbie Schneider, thank you for watching as well. By the way, I have another announcement to make too. I have my next Live with CDP Sports Talk, the next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, Season 8. Episode 36, overall 421, is going to be next Thursday, August 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern with my special guest, country music recording artist, Danny Spiro. And he's going to talk about his music career in Nashville and coming from Alabama, and his latest hit, Her Favorite Color. So if you're a fan of music, especially country music, tune in to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show next Thursday night at 7 p.m. with Danny Sparrow. Looking forward to it as well. Guys, if you're looking for your best friend, check out the Cambridge District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, or visit their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. If you're looking for your best friend, check out the shelter. There are a lot of animals, pets down there that are looking for forever families and forever homes, and all their profiles are on cambridgehumanesociety.org. And also, they're doing a 50-50 monthly raffle with the Humane Society that raises money for all the programs down there for the animals. You can get your tickets on cambridgehumanesociety.org or pop by the office at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge. And if you're also looking to become a volunteer like I am as a dog walker and fundraiser, you can fill out the volunteer form again at cambridgehumanesociety.org. I really enjoy helping them out and being a fundraiser for them as well. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is hosted by yours truly, Chris Pame, is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our radio station's website is wqeefm.radio12345.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. You can also follow me on my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. Pame. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show again is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, the first ever all-electric Equinox EV goes up to 513 kilometers battery range. Engine-wise, 0 to 96 kilometers an hour in just 5.9 seconds. And you also get an 8-year, 160,000 kilometer warranty on the all-electric Equinox. And more details at barrycullen.com. Finally, you guys can also follow this content creator. Yes, I'm on TikTok at Live with CDP, and I want to say thank you to my 2,300 plus followers on TikTok, and I do post a lot of content there as well. Live with CDP merchandise, t-shirts coming soon. More details coming in the next couple weeks for sure. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as yours truly, check out StreamYard.com. They have basic free plans or paid plans like I have, professional plans. And if you're a business that does a lot of webinars or podcasting or live streaming, whatever, they have a business plan there for you. Just go to StreamYard.com and check contact the sales department. And I've been with StreamYard now for 4 years, and I've been really quite happy with StreamYard. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment podcast. The audio version is available on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, and now on YouTube Music. So make sure if you go on the YouTube Music app to subscribe to Live with CDP Sports Talk. And by the way, guys, I want to thank you to all my YouTube subscribers and viewers for my YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click in Chris Pame, Live with CDP Sports Talk, and hit that subscribe notification. Finally, you guys can email or text Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show at cpame19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 519-820-7188. Any comments, questions, suggestions, feedback, positive, negative, would be greatly appreciated as well. And also, guys, I am on cameo.com. If you're looking for a personalized video, type in Chris Pame, and I'd be happy to do a personalized video for you. The proceeds from my cameos will go to my radio and media work as well. And finally, we have CFL tonight. Montreal Alouettes 6-1, taking on the Hamilton Tiger Cats 2-5 from Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, Ontario. You can listen to the game on the Tigers Cats Audio Network or CHML 900. Or you can watch the game on TSN, 7:30 kickoff, pregame at 7 o'clock. And last night, Winnipeg crushed BC 25-0. And Winnipeg is now 3-6, and BC is 5-3. Saturday night, we have Edmonton at Saskatchewan, and Sunday night, the Argos in Calgary as well. And again, I want to say thank you to my guest today, Gini Sikes, stand-up comedian for LA. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on audio platforms, or for those listening on WQEE 99.1 FM. So I hope everybody has a great evening, great weekend, and hope you guys can tune in to the Argo Bounce Live audio show Tuesday, August 6th, 7 p.m. with Nick Small and myself. Matthew Shinetti, the guest from TSN. And then next Thursday, August 8th, 7 p.m., I've got country music recording artist Danny Sparrow coming on as well. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. Here in Ontario, it's a long weekend with the civic holiday on Monday, and we'll see you back here next week for another edition of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cohen Chevrolet and on WQEE 99.1 FM. And I'm also looking for sponsors for the Argo Bounce Live audio show with Nick Small and myself. Please DM Nick or me if your small or big business is looking to come aboard our show as well. So that's about it. Have a great weekend, everybody. And thank you again for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk.